everybody. Back again with some more football. I missed last week, so if you missed me, well, I'm back. But anyways, um, obviously, a lot of football happened this last week. I watched a couple of the games, but there's a lot of good games, which I was excited for. My fantasy teams kind of sucked, but anyways, there's I don't know, there's a lot of fun stuff happening. My team loses, which I guess isn't fun, but um, regardless, football's fun. I'm glad it's back, even though it's been back for 2 weeks. But anyways, um, yeah, I don't think there's any quote unquote crazy things that happened too much over the course of the week, but I'm sure there's a lot of upsets, a lot of, I guess, teams realizing, or people just realizing teams are maybe further ahead or further behind than maybe what we expected for. But I guess, how did you feel about just week 2 in general, Josh?
Yeah. Before we get into that, like, how was the college football experience? Like, I know you watched a couple of those games too. Did you pick up anything that you were interested in?
Um, yeah, I mean, like, I guess a big surprise is just how Alabama's playing. Obviously, their quarterback situation is a big question mark right now. It might be one of the worst quarterback play situations in, like, I don't know, like the past 10 years almost, just with how
At least in
inefficient
quite some
that,
time. I agree with you on that. It's been rough.
yeah. And even like in that, I guess, 10 year span where when they've shown a little bit of bad quarterback play, I feel like it hasn't held the team as far back as it is right now. And so I think that's just kind of a interesting to look at with Alabama's football program, where they benched their current starter, hoping that the guy behind him, he's gonna play better. But literally, if you looked at like every comment under like Alabama sports page and just in like ESPN and or college football pages in general, you'd hear that people already trashing and saying that the backup himself, is not good anyways. And so it's like you're just setting yourself up for more disappointment, which it'll be interesting to see how the rest of Alabama's season plays out, just because obviously, I mean, they have in general they have a star-studded team, but um, not it's not looking too good for them. But obviously, like the big news with college football is Colorado. Obviously, I watched yeah quite a bit of that, or kept up at least with the Colorado versus Colorado State game. um, see, it was kind of crazy how that type of game is like basically talked about like nationwide, basically in the college football sphere of things, which I mean, like a year ago, no one's going to talk about a Colorado versus Colorado State game, but this year's getting a bunch of attention. Obviously, Deion Sanders, he's, Coach Prime. He's what trademarking. I think he's trying to trademark Coach Prime and a bunch of different Prime catchphrases for himself. But
You got his
um,
sunglasses yet?
I don't got his sunglasses yet. But maybe you got to join the bandwagon. I've seen a lot of haters of the Colorado team, which I guess is understandable, but I think joining the bandwagon for that one in particular is fun just because of how bad they were last year, and we're kind of seeing them be a lot more fun of a team this season. They have stars both on offense and defense, which is pretty exciting to see. Kind of it was unfortunate the injury that happened, but yeah, I think what was
Are you talking
crazy
about
though
the
was
Travis Hunter?
yeah. But like the Colorado State guy, he was getting like a bunch of death threats, and his family like was getting like threats and stuff, and I'm like, that's crazy. And
Dude, I saw that and I was like, okay, people are taking it too far. Like, it's a football game. Like, you have to understand, like,
mhm,
people are moving at like supersonic speeds, like make
yeah,
tackles and stuff. And I'll get
yeah,
into it later about like Minka Fitzpatrick because he kind of received like some of the same treatment about that hit he made. But like,
mhm,
it's kind of like you got to put yourselves in the athlete's shoes there in a second.
mhm,
Like, yeah, like it was late. It was definitely late.
mhm,
He shouldn't have done it. But
yeah.
I don't think he went into the tension like, oh, I'm gonna take out Travis Hunter. Like,
I mean,
this is not like Bounty Gate or something like that.
the way the whole pregame situation of that game, I wouldn't be surprised if there's a little bit of maliciousness involved with that hit. I mean, like I feel like everybody was
Right,
kind of
right. It's
hitting
a
dirt.
rivalry
e-
game. That
Everybody's
part
hitting
makes sense.
dirty, but like so it makes sense to that extent. But at the same time, I feel like in a way he did take it a step too far. I think with that hit. I mean, like
But like, it's not like he had murderous intent about it. Like, that's kind of like what I'm trying to get at.
I don't know. I mean, like they're literally fighting in the like they had to get separated before the game even started. With like I think I don't know. It was way heated. I think everybody was kind of playing a little nasty. So I mean, like I think like vice versa, something could have happened easily to a Colorado State player, and I think I would have had the same opinion of of a Colorado player as the same way I think about this Colorado State guy who, um, you know, he probably wasn't hoping to put him in the hospital, but like just kind of like send a message like put the hurt on him type thing where he's like, yeah, take him out of the game type, not like hospital take him out of the game, but like make him not want to come back into the game type thing. And so I think
Right.
there's,
Physical. Yeah, yeah. There's like a difference between like physical and then like I want to
hmm
threaten his life or something like that. And for
hmm
like on the other side of threatening his life and like his family, like that stuff's not cool. Like
yeah,
like
yeah,
getting their house addresses, like that would be scary. Like
yeah,
what
and
if
I
somebody
think
got your
yeah,
house address and things like that? You would be like freaked out, right? So it's kind of like
yeah,
there's a little bit of like, okay, some parts went too far,
hmm
but like let's not as a society go like that far as
hmm
well, you know?
yeah, and I
So
think yeah, Deion Sanders he like denounced it too. He's like he's telling like fans not to act this way. He's like act with class type thing, and honestly like Coach
that's
Prime
fair.
has been he's been a super awesome coach. I think uh, for Colorado, obviously one because they're winning, and two I think he's I don't know he does he obviously does his trash talk, and I think that's it's one of my favorite parts of his game. But he also is like really respectful towards his opponents when like things like that happen. And then I know I saw like a video on Instagram, I think, of him like bringing all like the female staff or whatever into the locker room and saying like these are like the women in our lives. You got to make sure we respect all the women in our lives, and you just kind of showcasing like this is how you be a man, and this is how you be I guess in a good person in society, which I really like from his standpoint in terms of he makes good football players and he's also making good men, which I think is really it's really cool to see from Deion Sanders, despite a lot of the trash talk that opposing coaches give him and all the fire that they set under Colorado players.
One thing to add on that too, I mean, like you spread a lot of love for Dion, and I do too as well. Like, do I feel like sometimes he puts on a facade, like to maintain public image? Yeah, I do. But like, who doesn't now? Like when you're in that spotlight, to some degree, and it's not that much to be honest. Like a
Mm-hmm.
lot of his, I think he's motivated that entire group, and
Mm-hmm.
I think for him, like putting on the facade of like, oh yeah, we're definitely going to the championship. People are going to find out who Colorado is. Like
Mm-hmm.
going with that energy, like it's definitely it has to spark confidence in the kids and stuff. Like
Mm-hmm.
and football is all about confidence in my opinion because like at
Mm-hmm.
that level everybody's really good, everybody's really talented.
Mm-hmm.
Like everybody can make it into the league. Everybody was a star at high school, and
Mm-hmm.
NFL's like that too. But it's how confident are you with the information you have to go out there and like understand what the coaches want schematically, but understand your abilities and where your weaknesses are, but still confident in your
Mm-hmm.
strengths to get the job done. And I think Dion does a great job of like towing that line where
Mm-hmm.
he doesn't like between cockiness and confidence, basically. I think he's
Yeah.
really strong in that regard.
Yeah, but I'm really looking forward to Colorado's next two games. Obviously, they're going against ranked schools again that are actually good, I guess. And so, I mean, like Oregon's going to be a good game, and USC's obviously going to be a fantastic game. I think I do think that both those teams are quite a bit better than Colorado, but I think Dion said it himself that at least skill position wise, he can match pretty much any college in the NFL or not in the NFL, any college in the nation. But this is like the guys in the trenches is kind of where he's weak at, and so it'll be interesting to see if he can coach his way around some of the weaknesses when he faces these upcoming two games with Oregon and USC. But overall, even if they lose, I hope that he keeps it close and keeps it competitive. But I think yeah, Colorado, it's a fun culture change to see there. I'm not super big into college football, but I think everyone's kind of hyped about the Colorado news, just with them being significantly better than they were last season. So it's just
I'm
kind of
hyped
fun
to
thing
see
to
them
keep up on.
against USC. I think that would be a really good game. That's going to have a
Hmm
lot of hype around it.
Yeah, I mean, like honestly, every game's having hype, but yeah, I agree. Yeah, USC is gonna have like it's. I mean, all their games are basically like national television type football games now, but like yeah, that one definitely is gonna be on everybody's watch list if you're watching college football.
Alrighty, sweet. Ready to talk some NFL?
Yep. Um, yeah, so I guess we can kind of just go throughout the weekend. Obviously, the Vikings Eagles game was that first game of week 2. I had my little prediction video, which ended up being quite accurate to the outcome of the game. Where I guess I know my football. I had Kirk Cousins on my fantasy team, even though I lost. I'm grateful for him. Um, but
Garbage time stat powder.
the game was so close, bro. Like,
We'll get into that. We'll get into how the game unfolded.
yeah, I mean, like, I think the biggest thing with the Vikings is their offensive line really struggled. Like, I mean, like every team's offensive line will likely struggle to the Eagles' offensive line, but like we really saw a lot of, I guess, just the weaknesses that the Vikings' offensive line had really shine through this during this game in terms of um, you know, a non-existent run game basically. And it's just interesting to see how, I guess, I mean, it's even with the Cam Akers trade, it'll be interesting to see how the Vikings run game just kind of progresses from here because obviously the first 2 weeks they do face they did face against pretty difficult defensive lines, which obviously makes running game difficult. And when you have a tough time setting up the run, then it's kind of harder to create that rhythm throughout your drives. But I think that was one thing that really held the Vikings back. And I mean, we saw that with like Kirk Cousins fumbles, which was obviously less than ideal for the team. But um, I mean, Jordan Addison, he looks like the real deal with the team. T.J. Hawkinson, he's playing phenomenal football, and the Justin Jefferson, and so saw that like this unbelievable display of talent there. And then Eagles offense is such a dangerous thing to go against, just because I mean we saw against the Vikings that if they really need to run the ball, they can run the ball all over you, but if they need to pass, they have the playmakers set to pass. You got AJ Brown, Devontae Smith, you got Dallas Goedert. I mean, even your running backs are pretty decent pass catching backs when you really need it. Which I mean makes it tough. And then after all, we talked about their offensive line a little bit earlier, like a couple episodes ago, about how their offensive line as well is just one of the best in the league right now. And so um, the Vikings offense just really has their way with anything that they wanted, or not the Vikings, the Eagles offense hasn't their way with anything they want to do, which makes them so tough to beat. So it was impressive to see the Vikings kind of try to stay toe to toe with them.
Yeah, and at some points, like they did come back to your point and make it a 6 point game at the end. But I think throughout that game, you could just see like how if, like the Eagles wanted to run the ball, they could run the ball. They could do pretty
Hmm.
much whatever they want. Um, if you have AJ Brown in your fantasy team and you're like he's been giving me nothing. Like he's been giving me 6 points, like 10 points, like entirely in like low ranking. Just hold on to him. Please don't trade him away. Like, please don't do that. Like, even Jamar Chase, I get it. Burrow tweaked his
Hmm.
calf, but like Jamar hasn't had the stats to pad it up. But these are guys that are gonna win your league. So, short fantasy note: keep them. Do not trade them away for like lower prices. If somebody wants to overpay for them, like okay, that makes sense to trade for them. But like, if you're getting like an RB3 that might not even make your flex, or like a wide receiver 3 that might not make your flex to
Hmm.
Jamar Chase or AJ Brown, like hold on to them. But that being said, that little aside, set apart, Eagles run game is like dominant.
Hmm.
Like even for a guy like DeAndre Swift who had like issues with interior running in Detroit, which is why like Detroit wanted to go Dave Montgomery and Jameer Gibbs in the offseason, he looked like phenomenal behind that line because as long as like a guard and the tackle on the Eagles is like initiating their double teams correctly, he has wide open holes where like he doesn't have to read leverages or things like that. So in that offense, like DeAndre Swift is a perfect fit.
Hmm.
Fortunately, kind of Gamble lost his opportunity in that game because he was hurt. Um,
Hmm.
but I think he's still going to play a role in that offense. So like for me, like the Eagles' offense is just like a four-man like jigsaw that I don't want to solve, like
Hmm.
and figure out who's going to be the lead guy because think it's going to change week to week. Like I had Rashad Penny in one of my leagues, so I'm a little bit salty. Like he's barely got any touches so far, but like he could play the lead back like
Hmm.
on one of these cases, like week 4 or 5. Like I wouldn't be surprised by that. So
Hmm.
um, and that's a good problem to have for the Eagles. because now you're not relying on one guy to last you throughout the season. You have like 4 or 5 that you can run different concepts.
Mhm.
And like to AJ Brown's point, I think it was the one possession where they didn't end up getting any points at all, and he was targeted twice in the red zone.
Mhm.
One should have been a pass interference, but it wasn't called. That would have held the Eagles like up by 15 late in that second half, where they didn't get any points on that possession, and then
Mhm.
like the Vikings closed the gap, made that a one
Yeah.
possession game.
Mhm.
Then like things of that nature. So like there was like 3 or 4 or 5 plays away where the score could have been larger than it was, but at the same time, like the Vikings could have done stuff to keep it a close game and play up to their potential,
Mhm.
like in moments that they should have. And I thought TJ Hawkinson should have had an even bigger night because obviously,
Mhm.
like Justin Jefferson's going to be the focal point, but it seemed like every time the Vikings went to him, they're suddenly moving up and down the field at will, and then
Mhm.
like suddenly they just stop at spurts of the game.
Mhm.
So I guess I get it. The game plan calls for other people, but like you got to go to what works sometimes against a matchup that's favorable. And
Mhm.
I think the Eagles linebackers had some trouble covering Hawkinson. So you might as well target him a lot more often. So that
Mhm.
way you can free up Justin Jefferson and exploit your matchups that way. It's like a cat and
Mhm.
mouse game. So
Yeah.
that's my take on what I've seen on both sides of the offenses, at least. Um, do you have any other thoughts on like your defenses or anything I mentioned?
Oh no, I think that mostly covered it. And I guess going back to your AJ Brown point, I know that yeah. I mean, the past 2 weeks, I think he's been I guess unlucky with like missed touchdown opportunities, or he's like just barely missed the end zone and getting points there. And so I think that again, I mean everyone's talking about how Jalen Hurts only targets Smith, but I do think that one or two plays that went AJ Brown's way results in him getting a couple touchdowns, and then everybody just forgets about I guess the early or the games that he would have had or that he did end up having. But yeah, overall, I mean, yeah, I still think regardless the Vikings probably turn it around soon-ish. I mean, like they've shown that their offense is still wildly efficient. They can almost do anything at will in terms of their offense. Just with they can really keep up with any team in the league, as we've seen with the Eagles, and I'm sure in any game that every game that they're in, it'll probably be close. I wouldn't be surprised if they're just another season of a lot of one win or one score games. But they're whether they win or lose those games, I think they'll be in a lot of those type situations, which is annoying for fans. But I mean, goes to show how great their offense is. But
Guess who their next opponent is going to be this week?
who was it again?
Los Angeles Chargers.
Yeah,
Both of those
that'll be
teams are 0-2. So
yeah.
it'll be kind of wild at the end of that game to see that one team is 0-3 most likely. Um, and like if it's the Chargers, I'll be shocked. If it's the Vikings, I'll be shocked.
Hmm.
So it's gonna be one of those cases
Yeah.
after week 3.
But yeah, that's most of what I had for Vikings Eagles, and then I'm sure you watched the Bears game, right? But I guess we can
Um,
kind of move on to that next
I
if you
I
wanted to.
kind of watched it. Like half the time was me like covering my eyes because of the
Hmm.
offense. Like I and the problem is they give me hope.
Hmm.
Like in 1 or 2 different possessions. That's the problem, Corstian. They give me
Hmm.
hope, and then something dumb happens, and they lose the game. So
Hmm.
that is like my summation of like what I see. Um, Chase Claypool did have a better game compared to
Hmm.
what he failed to put out in week 1. But I think the offense as a whole, there's like multiple things to look at. Like
Hmm.
one, stop calling screen passes. Please
Yeah.
stop calling screen passes every other time in the game. Like that is so infuriating, man. Like you could call draws, you could call stick routes, like something short that is not a screen pass and threatens the linebackers and defensive ends to not either like kill Justin Fields or like cheat on
Hmm.
the screen. Like and the lack of variance in that was like annoying me so much. Even the play call where you could even I don't know if you paid attention to this on the post game comments because it was a Buccaneers player,
Hmm.
Levante David, just said at like so the Bears called the screen pass before the penalty,
Hmm.
and they called the same exact screen pass that led to the pick six.
Hmm.
And Lavonte David said, "Okay, we saw it in the same formation, and everybody in the building knew it was going to be screen pass." If the
Mhm.
defense knows like what play you're going to call, like at that level of the game, you're not going to win.
Mhm.
The whole object of running offense is to one influence the defenders and make them think one way and react to it. And
Mhm.
by calling the same screens, you're influencing the defenders to do what you want, but they're doing what they want as well. And that's the worst
Mhm.
spot to be in as an offense. So that's got to change. But also, I don't think Fields is out of blame either. I don't think he's a bust. I don't
Mhm.
like because I've seen some great moments from him. Like he
Mhm.
targeted DJ Moore on plays where he's looked really, really good.
Mhm.
I just think the development of him from a system level has been horrible. And I
Mhm.
think for him personally, like it's resulted in him taking way too long to make decisions, holding the ball in situations where he's got to throw it
Mhm.
because in the NFL you got to make anticipatory throws. Like for as much as like people dogged on Tua early in his career, like he
Mhm.
was pretty decisive when you gave him a
Mhm.
read to be decisive
Yeah.
about. Justin Fields has got to be like that, and
Mhm.
he's shown that like 25% of the time, which is good. It means he has the talent to do it. But
Mhm.
75% of the time, he's like comfortable having slow drops, like reading his defenses, and then like going into a check down that's going to get like could get 8 or 9 yards. The defense is playing off. But like if you're throwing the check down every time, similar to calling the screen pass every time, the defense is going to key on it and like guard the
Mhm.
check down. So
Yeah.
at those phases, that's where you got to be aggressive because the
Mhm.
dig route behind those check downs is going to be open. So a lot of frustration there. And then to top it all off, like the defense couldn't get Baker Mayfield on the ground in crucial third downs where they literally
Mhm.
tackle him around the hips, but don't finish the sack technique. And
Mhm.
Baker Mayfield scrambles for first down. So there's a lot of things that need to change where it's like almost there. And then like on the offense, it's just like it needs a complete system rework.
Yeah.
But
Yeah. I
until I
think.
see that
Yeah.
happen, I don't think anything's changing.
Yeah. I had a couple thoughts on that game too, where I think coaching and Justin Fields have a lot on their shoulders to like. I mean, for carrying the blame. I think. um. Yeah. Because I mean, like obviously Justin Fields, his game is running the ball, but like again, if there's games where he isn't like theoretically, if there's good QB spies, good containment on him in a game, where you can't run the ball. I guess similarly, like hypothetically, if that was the situation here, then I feel like the Bears' offense immediately shuts down, which I think is pretty on Justin Fields to be able to overcome these situations, especially in his draft. Obviously, he wasn't the second quarterback taken like a lot of people expected, but I mean, he was still considered like quarterback 1B or quarterback 2 in that class that he was in, and I think that he's shown that he can make plays, but like I think that the Bears, I mean, if they don't do much with the changing in play calling, I wouldn't be surprised if they're in a position to be trying to take Caleb Williams in the draft this upcoming draft. Just with how stagnant their offense looks right now, it feels like Roshan Johnson's really the only, I guess, consistent playmaker
He's
on that
looked really,
offense.
really good. And like Khalil Herbert's not done anything bad. It's just that Roshan's looked better.
Hmm. Yeah, but I guess on another side note with that game though, I think a lot of people owe Baker Mayfield and the Buccaneers an apology. Everybody was trashing on him, and yeah, honestly, through these, I mean, obviously the season's still got a long ways to go, but I mean, just looking through these two games, Baker's, I mean, he's played good football. He beat the Vikings. I mean, it was a close game and whatnot, but still, like, he's winning games. Mike Evans, he hasn't really taken that step back that everybody thought he was going to take when Baker Mayfield became his quarterback. I knew a lot of people who were fading Chris Godwin, Mike Evans, literally the entire offense, and then um, I mean, in one of my leagues, I got Baker and Mike Evans, and I'm contemplating starting Baker Mayfield over Justin Fields at this point with him outscoring him, and despite Justin Fields supposed to being like the running god, but um,
I mean, on that note, why you mentioned it, like I'm still fading Chris Godwin,
mhm,
not because like anything he's done. He's still a talented player. I just don't think Baker's gonna target him as much with what Baker's good at. I think Baker's really good at throwing the vertical routes. Like
mhm,
that's a good part of his game. And Mike
yeah,
Evans is a better pairing for that. and I
Hmm.
think it's the reason for like the star production between Godwin and Evans. Yes, like Godwin may have a couple blow up games this season, but
Hmm.
like Evans is the guy like you want out of like Tampa based on what Baker can
Hmm.
do well and how they're calling it. That's just my take on that.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess we can look up his. So, I mean, like he's still getting targeted a bunch. Chris Godwin.
Oh, absolutely. He's still gonna give you like starter value, like starter minutes. I'm just talking about if you want like wide receiver one upside, I
Hmm.
think it's Evans in that offense.
Yeah, I mean, I still feel like that Chris Godwin can show like low end wide receiver one
That's
upside.
possible
Just
for him. Yeah. I think
well,
that's a
because like
ceiling. Right.
yeah, because I mean, like theoretically, against Chicago, right? If he caught all 8 of his catches and still had the same amount of
Right.
yardage, like
Right. Right. Right.
that's a wide receiver one number. Week one, if
Right.
I mean he was 5 for 6 with his targets, and so I mean like he's
You could say that a lot about a lot of players though.
yeah.
Like if they catch all their targets, but I see your point. Like in the middle of the field, that's like kind of the easiest way to get the ball.
Hmm.
And that's where Godwin thrives at. So like theoretically, he
Yeah.
should be able to catch like 70 to 80% of his targets.
Yeah, I mean he was 5 for 6 in his first in week one. He was 5 for 8 for the second week, and so I think he continues just being pretty steady with getting anywhere from five, like probably like 4 to like 8 catches potentially a week, which I think is perfectly fine for him. I don't think anyone's really expecting him to be like the best receiver in the league, but I think this is exactly like what people wanted from him, and I think that if I could get this value, I'd get it from
It
anyone in
was
my
it was
league.
definitely for me looking at their team this season. It was definitely their downgrade from Brady to Baker Mayfield
Hmm.
that I had assumed. And I think a lot of people thought that way. So it was. I don't think it was necessarily
Hmm.
Evans and Godwin's talent. It's just the
Hmm.
quarterback who was throwing on the football.
Yeah,
But
and Baker's gonna
he's
show them
definitely
what's up.
Baker's definitely matured. Like I think he's shut a lot of people up these 2 games thus far.
Hmm.
So props to him.
Yeah. But I mean, that's kind of. I mean, at least that's for me. That's all I kind of have over the Bears Buccaneers game. Is there any other last points you want to bring up?
Can we get to the next game, please?
Okay. Next, we got the Broncos and the Commanders. So on the bright side for the Broncos, their offense looks pretty good. On the not so bright side for the Broncos, their defense is pretty awful. Um, yeah, I don't know why Vance Joseph was brought back to be the Broncos defensive coordinator. I don't think he's ever had a top 16 defense in the league like his entire career, and he's been a he's been defensive coordinator multiple times. He's been a head coach for the Broncos, and during that tenure, he had one of the worst Broncos defenses. Maybe this is easily worst defense for the Broncos, but during his time as head coach, the Broncos defense was also pretty bad, and so I mean, we're seeing that like the Broncos, this
I'm
like
never adding their defense again to my league.
unless they fire him. Like if they fire him tomorrow, I trust whatever defensive coach or assistant coach that they bring up instead of Vance Joseph. Like, um, yeah, but yeah, I mean, that like part of me is like, we're 0-2. It'd be kind of nice just to tank and like get again Caleb Williams or somebody, but just with how like efficient this offense has been, I find it hard that like the Broncos are gonna lose more games than the Cardinals or like the Bears potentially. I still think that the Broncos have a pretty down season. Like I think at best they're probably winning 7 games. Just with again how awful this defense is. Like I don't think like against the like this week they're facing what the Miami Dolphins, and I think the Broncos theoretically on offense could keep up with the Dolphins offense to a certain extent, but um
I think for 1 or 2 quarters. I don't think about all 4 quarters. That's a tough ask.
I mean like I don't know. The Broncos, with the coaching and whatnot, they've been like the most efficient offense in the NFL from a drive to drive basis. They have the most potential, like they have the most scoring percentage drives in the NFL. And so as long as they're getting deep, as long as their offense is on the field, I think that they'll at least be in touchdown or field goal position, which leads me to think that they have the capabilities of uh, playing good offense. I mean, we even saw like last week against the this last week against the Commanders, who have one of the best defensive line units in the league. Russell Wilson had like the longest time to throw per snap in all the NFL last week as well. And so I mean, like the Broncos offense has certainly taken a step up. It just really comes down to can the defense literally get a single stop because um their defense. Like, I mean, Damari Mathis has been pretty disappointing this season with just the first 2 weeks. I know last year he started off slow and kind of like got better as the season went, but it's kind of disappointing to see that. Hopefully Riley Moss comes in, he plays pretty good. Drew Sanders in his limited play times played pretty decent. The pass rush was awful week one, kind of stepped up last week. It's kind of exciting to see Nick Bonito have a little bit of a progression in his game where last year he was like quote unquote a pure pass rusher that couldn't really do any run stop, and so he got like 0 snaps. And so then this season, I mean, against the Commanders, right? He had a couple pressures, he had a couple sacks, and then he had like a couple like tackles for a loss in like the run department, which I was really promising for me to see from him. But I think the Broncos defense really needs like a better interior pass rush presence, and I think they're expecting with like Zach Allen to do that, especially with Vance Joseph coming as the defensive coordinator, kind of doing similar things. But
When's
again,
Zach
Vance
Allen
Joseph
coming
sucks.
back? So week
He's
4 or 5?
no, he's been here like the whole time. It's just that the
Oh,
coaching
okay.
sucks. Vance Joseph doesn't know like he'll blitz like
That wasn't meant
he
to
like
be a dig, by the way. I just genuinely didn't know.
yeah, no. So it's like I don't know the amount of times like the Broncos get an offense, their defense like gets the opposing offense to a first down point or whatever, or not a third down point in the game, and then they just like give up like a 15-yard play or something is like pretty ridiculous. I would have fired him like immediately after week one, just with how bad he is. But um, yeah, I mean, it was exciting to see the offense play good for once, but also the Commanders. I mean, the Commanders are 2-0, really good for them. I think like they were a team that like I feel like we just like because of situations, I feel like we gave them a poor record, but like
Right.
obviously we both gushed over how talented this roster like
We
really
instantly
is.
regretted the picks we made. Like we're just like they're going to be better than how we predicted, but I didn't think we expected Brian Robinson to take the step he's taken. Like
Yeah,
he's
and
really sees that starting running back role, and that's props to him. Like he's shown
mhm,
flashes, and we should have taken more stock into the fact that his first NFL game was coming off getting a gunshot wound,
mhm,
like handled, and then
mhm,
like trying to recover from that.
mhm,
That's like not many NFL players can say that. Like they got shot
yeah,
at and then they have to start their NFL career.
mhm,
Like that is like insane. And like all props to him. He's just been putting in the work. And Sam
mhm,
Howell looks like he's like a guy that will eventually become good at situations and concepts. We just have
mhm,
to see more because, like you mentioned, like we need to see him in other defenses other than the Broncos because Broncos have some problems on defense.
mhm, yeah. But yeah, I mean,
I think
overall, I
the
mean, he's
one
looked
thing
good
to
for what
note
it is.
too is, oh, go ahead, cut you off there.
Yeah, no. Yeah, like I mean, Sam Howell, he looked. I mean, regardless, I think that he like of it being the Broncos defense, I think that he showed a lot of people that how good he is just with the fact that it is an NFL defense in the end of the day,
Right,
and
right.
he wasn't talked about as like a top prospect coming into last year's draft, and so I think I mean his only
He
really
was drafted in
experience.
like the 5th round or something, right?
Yeah, he was like in the same like I feel like a lot of people had him in the same caliber as like Matt Corral and stuff, or and like Matt Corral can't even make a roster now, but
Right. I think he's on the practice squad for New England. Yeah, I had some high hopes for him. It's not worked out for him.
yeah, and so I
Hopefully,
mean I think we're seeing that. I mean he played good in his limited time last season, and I think that he kind of just showed that people that you know he is legit. I mean he has good playmakers on the offense as well, which I think really helps. That like it isn't like a Panther situation where Bryce Young he has like he's played really well for what it's been, but like um I mean the surrounding cast around him is pretty abysmal. But then you look at the Commanders and you see his surrounding cast and you're like, oh wow, like Terry McLaurin is your number one, like he's like a quote unquote lower tier number one receiver, but like he's still a elite talent in the league. You have
and
Jahan
your guy
Dotson
Jahan
who's one of them.
Dotson.
Yeah, he doesn't play, I guess, the craziest this season, but he's been consistently good. Curtis Samuel's had his moments, and then obviously, Brian Robinson has played well. The offensive line has been pretty decent as well for them. But yeah, I think that it's a lot of good things to look forward to if you're a Commanders fan. But I mean, that's kind of what I had. I know you were talking about something too, though.
I was just gonna mention the Hail Mary because like going into that Hail Mary drive, like I
Mhm.
didn't catch most of like the Broncos and Commanders game. I probably
Mhm.
caught them like bits of the fourth quarter.
Mhm.
because I was like, I gotta watch something else after their Bears game. And
Mhm.
yeah, you really saw their D line take over from like what I watched,
Mhm.
and like Denver was going nowhere, and it was like it felt like one of those plays where just like the crowd was starting to boo Russell Wilson,
Mhm.
even though they were like within scoring range and still had a chance, and they were like 8 points away.
Mhm.
And then you see the Hail Mary where like it looks like it's gonna be short, then it bobbles once up in the air, twice up in the air, and then nobody boxes out the guy who catches it,
Mhm.
and the Broncos are suddenly 2 points away from overtime.
Mhm.
But then you see overtime, and Cortland Sutton doesn't come back to the quarterback enough to fight for the ball, and it
Mhm.
draws an incompletion. So, like, credits to the Broncos, they're fighting,
Mhm. Yeah.
but I think they need that number one guy to step up, really step up. Like Judy
Mhm.
and Sutton need to elevate themselves, or they gotta rely on Mims because Mims has looked
Mhm.
good to me. Like he's
Mhm.
looked really, really good to me for a rookie.
Yeah. And I mean, like, there's also a lot of talk about like the uncalled passer interference on that last 2 point conversion that the Broncos try to make. And
Fair,
I mean, what's in the past is in the past, but
right?
I feel like I don't know, like that if I don't know, I feel like if it was the other way around, I feel like the Broncos had a higher chance of getting called against them than the Commanders doing it to the Broncos. You know, or like
It's
where it's
almost
like
like you're a Broncos fan or something.
yeah, I mean like Chiefs get that call like 9 times out of 10, dude. Like, right?
It's almost like they have Mahomes, right?
Yeah, right. You know, like what? Literally, any like Broncos have been like in the doghouse for refereeing for so long, and I know like every fan says this, but like I think I mean like I was in like the Broncos subreddit during the game, like here and there, and like the Broncos like fans were like pretty happy, like finally be like we got a couple calls go our way this game as well, but like we were like very grateful for those moments because we acknowledge that like I feel like it gives me more validity of like complaining about like the calls that don't go against us because we actually appreciate the calls that go for us rather than a lot of teams ignore the calls that go for them, and then only look at the bad calls. But I think that I mean overall I feel like the Broncos have been on like the opposite side of bad calls. I mean I think you even look at week one, it was like what both the calls. I mean, sure, there's the Kareem Jackson head-to-head hit or whatever in week one, which sure it should have been called anyways. But like the Jimmy Garoppolo hit, like I don't know, like from like what we saw in the one replay, it didn't even look like he was hit in the head in the first place. I mean, Justin Simmons went back and said like I didn't hit him in the head, and like you just like I don't know. Everyone was talking about how like it looked like he was just acting half of it because he got up right away and he was like, "Oh yeah, like I'll miss a play," and then he came back and he was completely fine the rest of the game. And they didn't show replays, which made it harder for like people to actually gauge if it was a head to head because homie like dived right into like he was like running and then they called like late hits and whatnot when in reality the guy was diving to make the tackle and then the runner dove into the tackle basically and which resulted into the head to head which ends up costing Broncos drives. But
So everybody, you see the cause of Corstian's trauma. It is refereeing towards Broncos players, um, and we hope to get this remedied soon. It's not on the level of Saints fans, but that was a well fought effort.
yeah, well I mean like I don't deny like I mean like the Kareem Jackson penalty like this last week, you know, I think
That's
that
that's wild. That's wild.
I think I was rightfully getting ejected. In all honesty, I think that he should be suspended for the season just like from that hit alone. And so it's like I'm not like trying to cope and say like oh every call like every Broncos hit was like unfair. Like I think that's a valid like penalty to have. I think he should be suspended at least sometime throughout the season. And but I think the week one ones were there was like the two calls that really ended up costing the Broncos drives on third downs. I think being the plays being on third downs ended up really hurting it, and especially the fact that it was such a big penalty that isn't getting reviewed just because of the perceived penalty or perceived head-to-head hit, makes it harder to like really judge if that should have been a call or if that shouldn't have been a call because again those are the types of plays that ended up costing games. And you look at that with like the Chiefs and Eagles in the Super Bowl where it's like do you normally call that that passer interference? on that James Bradbury play, or is it just in that situation you decide to call it, which is ends up being a game changing play rather than letting players play through specific plays?
Yeah. Yeah, I think it depends on how the refs call it, and like you're looking for consistency. Like I've been
Hmm.
harping on that from referees, like not just in NFL, NBA too.
Hmm.
Like they're probably the biggest culprits where like in big situations, recognize how significant the call is that you're about to make and whether it's consistent with how you call the game in the past. I think
Hmm.
that's super, super important. Like
Hmm.
keep a tracker, like do something to like keep track of like the calls I'm making or not gonna make and then
Hmm.
have some proper evidence why. Don't just make some random reason and say,
Hmm.
"Oh, we missed it." Well, those are crucial plays. Like
Hmm.
salaries are on the line, like bonuses are on the line. You can't screw that up.
Hmm.
Um, all right, we got a couple other games to cover. Want to make sure we touch on that as well as like any
Yeah.
other takeaways into week
Hmm.
3. Um, let's talk Dolphins and Patriots.
Hmm.
Um, from your vantage point, what did you take away from this game, if anything? Just like catching up with it, if you didn't get to watch it, like what are your thoughts?
Um, I hate going against Tyreek Hill in fantasy football. That's all I gotta say.
Don't we all? I love when he gets picked the one pick before me, in the
Hmm.
first round. I would really love Tyreek Hill, please, and thank you. But watching that game, I think Mike McDaniel's like I think he's a better play caller than Kyle Shanahan. And that just might be a hot
Hmm.
take. But I think the way he's utilized Waddle, Tyreek Hill, and Tua has been like absolutely amazing. Like it's just been on like we're looking at a young Andy Reid with like how he's scheming plays open. I know it's early,
Hmm.
but they have the simple concept: slant, flat, and wheel routes
Hmm.
for 3 guys. Each of one run of those routes, but the way they get into it is very interesting because you don't know what they're gonna call. They have like the wave across like NFL media now is like speed motion for
Hmm.
Dolphins players. So like Tyreek with motion late in the play clock with a running head start, and they'll call the plays while he's in motion. Still a legal move, still a legal move. But like basically, as the ball is hiked, Tyreek Hill has a running head start into his route, and if you leave Tyreek in the open field, it's a nightmare. If you let him like get like a running start, it's even more terrifying because now you don't know which way he's going to break. Is he going to go up the sideline? Is he going to go on a quick slant where you have to be quick and reactive? Is he going to be in the flat where he's just chilling? And then it's actually like a glorified screenplay. You don't know. You really don't know. And I think with the switch release concept they have, like in that slant wheel concept, that's hard to defend
Hmm.
because you're creating space. And then it's also Tua. Like it's perfect for Tua because he still has the reactionary plays with a flat and the slant route to
Hmm.
use. And if those get covered up, like he knows to go to the wheel route or go backside. And I think those options, no matter if he's going against Brandon Staley, often lauded as a great defensive coordinator when he was hired, or Bill Belichick, one of the greatest defensive minds. Like 2 weeks in, they're not going to have an answer for that
Hmm.
no matter what kind of personnel. And like New England probably had the best personnel to play them because they run the best man coverage. And even then, like there's just no answer. And then
Hmm.
Raheem Mostert, I think, is a revelation for this team. Like in the standpoint that he can be a bell cow back. The
Hmm.
only issue with Mostert is health. It's
Hmm.
really just been health. Um, but I think this offense, watch out, man, because
Hmm.
they got a lot of guys that can contribute, like Waddle, Azukama is like in a Debo Samuel role. That's really exciting
Hmm.
to see. And then Durham Smythe has been like really good in his role as well. So like don't count him out. But man, like Dolphins are impressive. Really, really impressive. Like they might finish the top in the AFC this year. I could easily see that.
Oh yeah, for sure. I think the Dolphins, as long as they stay healthy, is probably one of the best, at least offense we've seen during the course of this season. With obviously the slow start with the Bengals, Chiefs again with another slow-ish start. Um, but yeah, the Dolphins look pretty much unstoppable right now. Um, yeah, I know Jalen Waddle's been like in and out of like the injury bug at least right now, and so hopefully he stays healthy throughout the year. I think. Well, Tyreek
He's
Hill's
another
obviously.
guy. Please hold on. Please hold on to him.
Hmm.
He's not like okay. If you're comparing him to Tyreek Hill, he's probably not going to have those kind of blow up games, but he's still going to get you 20, sometimes 30 points, like in a couple
Hmm.
of weeks. Like most likely, like 15 to 20 points. Like
Hmm.
please hold on to him.
Yeah, I mean, we've seen from last season that this team can support 2,000 plus yard receivers, which I think will continue. I just right now, I mean, Tyreek Hill just looks unstoppable, and so once people start, I guess, better scheming against Tyreek, I think we'll see a lot more, explosive playmaking from Waddle, which will just make teams angry again. But
Guess fun fact. Guess how many scrimmage yards Jalen Waddle and Tyreek had last year, or like guess what is over
like over 3,000, right?
3,000.
Hmm.
I think they could easily hit that value. I wouldn't be surprised,
Hmm.
like you mentioned, if they hit 4,000 scrimmage yards. I think
Hmm.
I think it's easily possible in this offense
Hmm.
and with the 17 games.
Yeah, yeah, both are just, and their team speed in general is just insane on offense. But yeah.
On the Patriots side, they have a really good offense.
Hmm.
They like I don't think people saw this coming either. Like they were kind of like the Buccaneers like AFC. Like people
Hmm.
didn't see this coming. Like oh, what it's like to actually have an offensive coordinator. Like I think that's kind of important. Like Hunter Henry is like their number one option. Kendrick Bourne like didn't have the stats um,
Hmm.
to back it up, but in week two at least. But he's a really good receiver that they have. Demario
Hmm.
Douglas has been good, like sans the fumble he had. Um,
Hmm.
Booty can be something. Smith Schuster, like as long as you don't rely on him to be the primary receiver, he's gonna do some solid things
Hmm.
for you. And Ramondre Stevenson has been really good. Zeke's been like a contributor, and that's all you can ask for in this offense. Like I think
Hmm.
their offense can put up points now. Like
Yeah.
it's just like on the defense now. Like can they maintain what they already have? They have a lot of good
Hmm.
pieces, but it's going to be a tough ask for them to go up against the
Yeah.
Dolphins.
Hmm. Yeah, I think just both teams in general. I think it'll be just fun to kind of keep follow
Oh,
throughout the season. Oh yeah, go ahead.
I need to run one play by you, dude. There's Patriots got a blocked field goal, but I
Hmm.
think the way they had it like needs to be talked about because similar to the speed motion I was talking about for Tyreek,
Hmm.
the Patriots ran this out twice, and it caused two misses, one block kick for Jason Sanders and one miss. And you could tell like he was getting rattled by this. So
Hmm.
in the field goal block formation, normally you have a guy at the end that
Hmm.
starts out on the line of scrimmage and runs and blocks the kick, right?
Hmm.
And you have that on either side. What the Patriots did is they had one guy on the sideline. He kind of shuffles like when he's timing it up with the snap.
Hmm.
He kind of shuffles towards like where the rest of the formation is. And then right before the ball is snapped, he comes quickly to that block formation and runs.
Hmm.
And it's subtle, but like it gives similar to like that Tyreek running start
Hmm.
theorem theory. It gives that guy a running start to block the kick. And on the first time it was gold. It worked like a
Hmm.
charm. And the second time, like he was clearly in the vicinity where like Sanders got
Hmm.
spooked because he got blocked the first time. There's like, okay,
Yeah.
let me kick it left. He ended up wide left because of it.
Hmm.
And I would not be surprised if we see the Patriots or any other team run it more often this season
Hmm. Yeah.
because it's looking like a game changer early, but we need more games to see that.
Hmm.
And I think that might be huge for like special teams that
Hmm.
is new this season.
Yeah. Yeah, it'll be interesting. It's kind of fun just to see like new things get brought into the league, and then it becomes meta, and then defenses or other opposing teams scheme against it, and then the new thing comes out. But yeah, for all, it's pretty cool. But yeah, I don't really have much more to add on to the game. I missed a decent portion of this game, unfortunately. But I'm glad you were excited to see both interesting things on both sides or both from both teams. But um, see, I think another cool game this week was with the Rams and the 49ers. I think um, a big thing with this is, I mean, I think we kind of saw from week one as well, but the Rams, as a healthy team, are, I mean, even minus Cooper Cup, it still looks like a pretty good team. They're competitive in their games. I think everyone was really surprised to see like the Rams receivers that ended up kind of stealing the show from literally everybody else in the NFL with Puka Nakua and Tutu Atwell kind of balling out. But so we saw that, and then at least for me on the 49ers side, I think that um, 49ers may be the Super Bowl favorite, at least right now for the NFC side, just with how unstoppable they seem, just with their offense. Everyone had question marks about Brock Purdy. Can he continue, I guess, his greatness streak with, teams having the whole offseason of, studying his game film, plus him coming back from that pretty unfortunate arm injury that he incurred during that playoff game last season. But, he comes back, he's looking phenomenal. Debo Samuel, he's looking phenomenal as well. Christian McCaffrey's looking phenomenal. Kittle, I mean, he's looking good. Everyone's looking good. To the point where, like, I mean, McCaffrey played 100% of the snaps, I think, from the running back position last week, which I think is crazy, especially with just the depth you have behind him. Plus, people worry about his injury history.
Yeah. I'm not too worried about McCaffrey. I think the way he's going to be used is going to be
Mm-hmm.
fine. I agree with you on the 49ers. There's not much to add. I think
Mm-hmm.
they're just like a steam engine rolling right along, just flying through the opponents, and
Mm-hmm.
there's nothing you can do about it. Not much to add on their front. They're like, I was really impressed with Debo Samuel in this game because going into the season, I thought Ayuk was a better receiver, like as far as like
Mm-hmm.
skill set, and like Debo's kind of like get him in like the catch and run situations, and that's where he's gonna thrive. But I think there were a couple routes where like Debo like did really good as far as like technique. Um, as an aside, DK Metcalf like also surprised me too.
Mm-hmm.
Like his route running has improved a lot as well. Um, but sticking back to the 49ers, like I think as long like you just hope Ayuk is healthy and they have like a star-studded team on offense. Not much you can do
Mm-hmm.
in that regard. I think the only concerns I have with them is like the offensive line changes.
Mm-hmm.
So like the pass rush might be much more fierce for Brock Purdy as it was before, but like
Mm-hmm.
his pocket movement's still really good. It's calm and controlled. You don't see him like rattled at all, and
Mm-hmm.
you need that from a quarterback at the bare bones. Um, like where it's like controlled chaos and controlled scrambling, not necessarily like running like a deer in headlights trying to find something out. So I like that. I like their offense.
Mm-hmm.
Um, as far as their defense, I do think they might take a couple steps back just because
Mm-hmm.
D'Amico Ryans is not the defensive coordinator
Yeah.
anymore. Because, and all the respect to Tutu Atwell and Puka Nakua, but if you're getting beat on like stop routes like that and like constant like the same routes and not
Mm-hmm.
keying in on it, that's gonna be a problem where teams are gonna notice it and pick up on it. It
Mm-hmm.
doesn't mean like they're gonna be like a bottom five defense. I'm not saying that at all.
Mm-hmm.
I think they're gonna be top five, top 10, like at worst in like the season. They're just that talented.
Mm-hmm.
But it's just something to keep an eye out because if they go against somebody like Kansas City, I still believe in Cincinnati, Miami,
Mm-hmm.
they're going to pick up on those sort of things,
Mm-hmm.
like how much of rooms you give the receivers, because they're going to say, okay, where can we just get our cheat yards from, like our 8 9 yard gains easily. And if you notice, like Puka Nakua's like receptions, all of them are like 8 yard or 9 yard stop routes or something where it's like on a crossing route, but those are less frequent. They're all like just curl routes coming back to the quarterback, timing routes with Stafford. And for anybody wondering, should I still be on the Nakua hype train? Yes, he should. Even when Cooper Cup comes back, like there's nothing to suggest that Nakua is going to stop running those routes. So um, it's just a matter of like, okay, he's going to be like the secondary receiver that Stafford's going to look to, and he might get like 6 receptions or 7 receptions a game for like 8 yards. That's still pretty good stats, and he could still throw up a touchdown or two, like game in the game. Like that's still not out of the realm of possibility.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I mean, like, I really like how Matt Stafford's played this year too. Obviously, people had question marks about his playmaking ability, but him fully healthy looks really good right now. Um, I think that I mean, they've done a good job, I guess, reworking their offense without Cooper Cup. I think Puka Nakua his plays in a really similar way in terms of just like the quick route running, the quick playmaking ability, which that's what made him so great, despite maybe the lack of his overall physical prowess. But yeah, I think the Rams could be, a sneaky wild card type team going later into the season, especially with Cooper Cup back, and all of a sudden you can't even like focus in on guys like Tutu Atwell and Puka Nakua just because again once Cooper Cup's back, everybody's gonna have to hone in on him and make sure that he isn't just absolutely decimating your cornerbacks.
Don't forget about Higby too. Like
Hmm.
Higby's not getting as many touches, but like he's still like a capable tight end that can
Hmm.
produce.
Yeah, but I think that was most of what I had to talk about, at least for the Rams and the 49ers. Obviously, there's kind of like a big, crazy kind of game that happened as well this week between the Browns and the Steelers. And I know that you had a couple thoughts earlier about Minka Fitzpatrick and whatnot, but um, yeah, I wasn't really able to watch this Browns game, but I know you were able to kind of see a lot of it. So I guess what are your thoughts on just I guess everything?
Yeah, I mean Browns are moving up and down the field, and then I
Hmm.
just felt numb just watching Nick Chubb get like take that
Hmm.
hit. Like at first, it looked like a routine tackle where like Chubb was just like he just
Hmm.
like toppled over like a couple guys. If you notice him go to the goal line, and then once you saw him like holding his knee, you're just like, oh shoot. And then
Hmm.
unfortunately saw the replay. And then once I saw the replay, like I was like, okay, definite knee dislocation, and that probably means he tore one of his side ligaments, probably his like
Hmm.
um, LCL lateral cruciate ligament that's on the side of your knee. Um, and I'm not surprised to see the report that he had multiple tears, significant knee injury out for season.
Hmm.
Um, and if you don't know this about Nick Chubb, it's the same knee he injured in college.
Hmm.
And that was also a brutal injury, which is why he kind of fell in the draft, um, like just because of concerns about that. So um, I'm not surprised he's out for the season. It's gonna take some time for him to come back, just because it's the same knee as well. And I'm not sure if he might come back.
Hmm.
That's how serious like this injury is. Like um it's sad. It's sad for me saying this because like he was one of my favorite active running backs like to watch like the last couple seasons. So like
Hmm.
that whole game I just felt numb going into it.
Hmm.
Um but about Minka, I don't think it was like a dirty hit. Like a lot of people
Hmm.
saying, "Oh, he purposely targeted his knee," and like Minka's always been a dirty player, bringing up his like pass penalties and situations like that.
Hmm.
And it's similar to I forget his last name out of Colorado State, like Hunter
Hmm.
somebody. I think it was Tripman or something like that. I could totally be butchering that. Um, but we got to understand these guys are going in like milliseconds, like for hits, and they got to make split second decisions. Like if you look at Nick Chubb, you're not like tackling him above the hips or anything like that. He's just like the dude can bench 600 pounds. Like you're
Hmm.
not gonna like tackle him unless you tackle him at the hips or lower, and you got to come in at that speed to do it. So you only have a split second to think. And in that situation, it's like a goal line scenario. That's a tough
Hmm.
ask for anybody to tackle him.
Hmm.
So like yeah, did Minka go low? Yeah, but it's not. I don't think he had dirty or malicious
Hmm.
intentions behind that. He's just trying to make a play because it's Nick Chubb, and if Nick Chubb gets in, then they're down by a touchdown, or something like that. Um,
Hmm.
and I'm like, just stop with the Minka slander, please.
Yeah.
Like, as it is, he also got hurt, and he also had to deal with that. But like, put yourself in your shoes. If you have Nick Chubb running at you, you have to find a way to tackle him. And like, I'm pretty sure Minka didn't do it with any malicious intent at all.
Hmm. Yeah, and I think Minka actually came out with a statement, just stating that he feels bad for like what ended up happening as like a result of his tackle, but he doesn't, I guess, regret making the tackle in the first place because that just, it's a standard tackle that you do on, running backs of like Nick Chubb's, I guess, play style, and so it's like, I mean, it was if any running back, he would have done this basically the same tackle. It's a pretty procedural way to be tackling someone. It just, someone was on his back, and then just the way the collision ended up happening ends up resulting in obviously the horrific injury, which just pretty awful. But obviously, and then outside of that tackle, though, were there any like key points that uh, you saw around the game? Obviously, it's kind of may have been hard to focus on the rest of the game with that injury, but
Yeah, yeah, for sure. I think Matt Canada's play calling, like similar if you're talking about to like Luke Getsy's play calling for the Bears, like it's not ideal. for that entire
Yeah.
offense. It's like
Don't know
very
how he's not fired.
yeah, it's very basic. And like
Hmm.
the way I can tell is like Najee Harris is not producing.
Hmm.
Like, am I a fan of him? Yes, but also like you're looking at like the players around. Like Pat Fryermuth's not producing, Najee's not producing, and they're your two best
Hmm.
players. Like, if you're looking at like yeah, Jalen Warren's like shining a little bit. So if you figured out how to utilize Jalen Warren, you got to figure out how to utilize the other players as well because that's
Hmm.
going to give everybody more opportunities to shine and score.
Hmm.
And it's not making Kenny Pickett's job a lot easier. Um, with that said, I think they're at a phase where it's like you gotta use Pickens too
Hmm.
because like
Yeah.
your offense cannot be rely on the defense to send 8 people and engage 8 and throw it
Hmm.
to Pickens on a slam where he outruns 3 defenders every time. Because
Hmm.
what are the odds of that happening? That's never going to happen.
Yeah.
So like there needs to be a change in the play calling to help like
Hmm.
Pickett and the weapons like get synced up where like there's purpose behind it. Like
Hmm.
with Miami, the slant flat is like designed to help Tua get rid of the ball fast because he has one of the
Hmm.
fastest times in the league to release. It's what he
Hmm.
does well in being decisive. So tailored routes like that to Pickett.
Hmm.
I'm not saying do the exact same concepts. I'm saying do the concepts that Pickett likes to do with variations so like defenses
Hmm.
can't hit in on that.
Hmm.
And I think that was a huge mistake.
Hmm.
26 points for the Steelers. 14 of them came off of defensive touchdowns. You
Hmm.
cannot rely on that as a recipe to win.
Yeah.
And I know it sounds like I'm harping on them as if they lost. They did win this game, but I'm just looking at the recipe of success for them, and it's very reliant on TJ Watt being peak TJ Watt for the rest of the
Hmm.
season when defenses are going to key in on him and stuff. So like I'm looking at this in the team perspective and I'm saying offense has to be better. And for the
Yeah.
Browns, like it's a tough ask. They did add Kareem Hunt, which should help.
Hmm.
I'm a huge fan of Jerome Ford. I think while he's not Nick Chubb and nobody ever is, like on that Browns roster, like he's gonna give you some startable production. That's my confidence in him. And then you
Hmm.
got Kareem Hunt as your backup plan, and then you have Pierre Strong as your
Hmm.
third running back. So like at least the top two, like I'm pretty confident in. They could still get a running game going and still utilize that offensive
Hmm.
line as a strength. Um,
Yeah.
and I love what I've seen from Amari Cooper. I think he's been a sleeper. We've been talking about it
Hmm.
leading up to the
Yeah.
season. Like Amari Cooper's been a sleeper, wide receiver one going into the season. It's just a matter of okay, can Deshaun put it together? Because Deshaun could
Hmm.
definitely play better than he has. And I think he's taking accountability for that. We just got to see it in week 3. So I
Yeah.
think they're in progress, but
Hmm.
defenses looked really good, dominant as always on both sides. It's just Browns offense we got to see. Steelers offense we also got to see, but it's more emphasis on they got to be
Hmm.
better.
Yeah. Yeah. Deshaun Watson really needs to step it up. I don't know how like I mean he has a long leash in terms of like draft capital that they gave up and the money that they gave him, but like I'll, outside of that, it's like how long of Deshaun Watson sucking are the Browns willing to take until they got to move on to somebody else? And like I hope he plays good, but yeah, it's not looking so good for the Browns, especially because they were so reliant on their elite run game to carry them throughout just a lot of these games this year. But now it's like if Watson, despite the other talent around him, can't really get the offense going, then I think the Browns are just in for another really long season. But yeah, I mean, I think yeah, and this is kind of just what we had for most of the games that at least we watched and paid attention to. But I think Josh had a couple other like just other random takeaways, I guess, about the week. But did you see any other highlights or just kind of individual like play things that I don't know that you thought were maybe worthwhile that you wanted to talk about or bring up?
Um, yeah. I think Saints offense is also like Trevor Penning's a problem for them. Like if you
Hmm.
got a good pass switch team, then that's going to be the weakness on the Saints. Um, but they're still a really good offense that I think people are still sleeping
Hmm.
on. Um, Bills bounce back game. Really excited to see that. Titans looked a lot better.
Hmm.
That's for sure. I think Tannehill and show people he's not washed up at all.
Mhm.
Um, Anthony Richardson. We talked about running quarterbacks being utilized
Mhm.
properly. I think he's looked really good, but one thing I did like he's got to learn how to protect himself. And on that note,
Mhm.
there's a lot of talk of like Tua learning jujitsu to learn how to
Mhm.
fall, so he can avoid like having more concussions that are
Mhm.
preventable. And I think that's a great. But these are the types of things you want to pay attention to. If the player is going out of his way to like work on a very specific skill to get himself better,
Mhm.
you want to pay attention to stuff like that. And in Tua's case, that means you can expect him to be more healthy because he's being more
Mhm.
accountable to address that health.
Mhm.
And you want to pay attention to those things because that's just going to mean the player is taking personal responsibility in his profession
Mhm.
and allocating resources to do that. And I think we need to see a similar thing from Anthony Richardson for the sake of seeing him and thrive in
Mhm.
his career. I think that would be extremely important.
Mhm.
Um,
Yeah.
Other than that, I don't have too much to add. I I want to hope on the Lions, but we
Mhm.
gotta see more from Jared Goff, like in the crunch
Mhm.
time scenario, because that's the only thing limiting that team. That team is too talented to lose
Mhm.
in crunch time like that, no matter their
Yeah.
opponent.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like with the Lions, a lot of it was, I mean, their defense kind of began to fall apart in that second half, which, I mean, it's like the offense did more or less what they needed to, at least for a majority of the game. Obviously, you could ask a little bit more from Jared Goff, but I think that offense as a whole did almost all that you really can ask from an offense to do in that standpoint. But yeah, I still think that, yeah, I don't know. I still think that there's a good chance that the Lions still win the division. Just, I guess, looking at how all the other teams have started there, I think Jordan Love has played moderately decent for what it is. I think, I don't know. Well, I think, yeah, time will be time will tell a lot about this NFC North division there. But I think I noticed or liked was just in general all of the first round rookie quarterback play. CJ Stroud, he's looking phenomenal. Like what was it? I think he has more 300-yard passing games now than Justin Field does in his career or something. Speaking of Bears records that have been beaten, Justin Jefferson also at 24 has more career receiving yards than any Bear receiver in Bears history, which hopefully Bears change up on that soon. But moving on past the
Just
Bears,
rubbing it in, right?
yeah. But yeah, I mean, CJ Stroud, he's looked good. Nico Collins has looked really, really well with CJ Stroud, which I liked. A lot of people had, question marks around CJ Stroud about his playmaking ability, his ability to read defenses, whatnot, but he's looking good there. And then Anthony Richardson, I think that he still has a lot to do a lot to improve on as a passer, but I think that the team or the coaching has at least schemed him well into like positions that he can play to his strengths. But again, it's like similar to Justin Fields. I think it's like I think only scheming him to run the ball. I mean, like he was moderately efficient as a passer until he got hurt, but like I think that it'll be interesting to see how they're able to balance, I guess, developing him as a passer while also being able to play to his strengths as a runner. Because I mean, that's why he was drafted so high with his physical playmaking ability, and so um, it's obviously important to incorporate that into your game plan. But you also see how, I mean, efficient of a passer Gardner Minshew was after uh, Anthony Richardson went out, and like literally in like the first like two drives or something. I think Gardner Minshew was already at, or I don't know if his first drives. It was pretty soon after the injury. Gardner Minshew in like half as many passes, I think, was already at Anthony Richardson's total yardage that he had at during the game up until that point, which obviously he's still a rookie, so he has time to develop. But it's kind of interesting to see that balance. And then with the Panthers, while the team in general does seem like it sucks, um, I think we've seen a lot of good improvement from at least from week 1 to week 2 with Bryce Young, which I think is really nice to see for Panthers fans. I think that it's pretty exciting for them to see that despite their team still struggling with a lot of things. There's a lot of holes. Their team wasn't a rookie quarterback type thing away from being a competitive team, but I think they are a team that is in the right position to develop a good quarterback. And so they got one of the best ones you could get in the draft with Bryce Young, and so I think that all three of the quarterbacks have pretty good current trajectories. it'll be interesting to see how I guess their long-term development ends up going.
All fair points. Yeah, those bear stats are sad to hear.
Hmm.
But hey, like on the Anthony Richardson point, I think like Gardner is the perfect guy to learn from on like
Hmm.
how to learn passing concepts, like what he's looking at, like similar to how like Zach Wilson's got to learn from Aaron Rodgers, so
Hmm.
like he can become a better passer. Like things aren't linear to the point where like or like things aren't always the same. Like Zach Wilson isn't always going to be a terrible quarterback,
Hmm.
but it's on his responsibility to improve and like seek out counsel in that regard, right? Similar to like Drew Lock. Like he had the opportunity to meet with Peyton Manning early in his career before he started a game to like learn how to be a great professional quarterback. And he didn't take that opportunity until his job was on the line, like 1 or 2 years later. So like it's about like on the 2-0, like you got to take responsibility, like in addition to preparation, game plan, week to
Hmm.
week. It's a lot of work. It's a lot of work. It's a 24/7 a job to do. But like if you want to be an elite level, like these are the kinds of things you need to do. I think there's a lot to look forward to with these rookies.
Hmm.
Um, quick name before we wrap it up. Who you got in tonight's game? We got the Giants and the 49ers.
Um, Probably say 49ers,
I'm definitely
right?
going to say 49ers. I think they're going to blow out the Giants. Um, Giants are just in the mixed muddle right now. Don't let the
Yeah.
Cardinals game fool you. I don't think 49ers are blowing a lead like that to the
Hmm.
49ers.
Yeah.
Giants.
Yeah. Yeah, I think Giants, if they do well this season, they're a type of team that like as the season goes on, they are gonna get better. Is like my own personal verdict of the team, just with seeing which receiver kind of takes the step up, and then seeing how Darren Waller plays. But I mean, yeah, that's I guess all we got for today. Make sure to follow us on Instagram. We try to post here and there, try to make cool stuff for you guys to see in case this is too long. But our Instagram is amon.a.mission. So, just let us know what you think about how we do with everything. But that's all we got for today. Peace out.
Peace.